Well, right now, another U.S. citizen is under arrest on suspicion of supporting ISIS. We say another because we've heard about this a lot over the last few weeks. The FBI taking into custody 44-year-old Arafat Naji near Buffalo, New York, charging him with trying to recruit for the terror group. They say he purchased night vision goggles, a machete, body armor, and was planning a trip to Syria after already traveling to Turkey last year. But his arrest also marks an alarming trend. It's the 69th ISIS-related arrest here in the United States. That's just over the last 2 years. So for more perspective on this, Joscelyn is a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a senior editor of the Long War Journal, which we should mention is a must-read for all of these issues. Tom, give us some perspective on this, because it does feel like every week we're getting news of another homegrown terror suspect. What is the threat really like?
Well, this started with al-Qaeda trying to spawn homegrown extremism or terrorism. What they want are followers who can't join the jihad overseas to basically commit acts of terror here at home. And ISIS has basically taken this to another level. What they're trying to do is inspire their followers to commit even small-scale attacks using even knives, for example. I think overall, there clearly is a threat there. There's clearly a danger. I think most homegrown extremists, however, are not a big threat. I think they're minor threats because they don't have the professional capability and capacity to really carry out mass casualty attacks.
Yeah, you talk about the organization and resources. It's interesting to contrast this story with the reported death of Mullah Omar, the Taliban leader that the United States has been looking for years. You were surprised by the reports of his death. Why is that? And tell us a little bit about who really poses the biggest threat to us today. Is it somebody like Mullah Omar, or is it somebody like the 44-year-old outside Buffalo, New York?
Well, the problem, to take the latter question first, the leadership level of all this, they have replacements. They have guys that are going to keep, coming at us. They have groomed new generations of jihadi leaders. So it's very important to take out guys like this or have them pass away like Mullah Omar for a variety of reasons. But what I think is very surprising about Mullah Omar's death is not the fact that he died. Any of these guys could die in any number of circumstances. What's surprising is the reports that he was dead. He's already been dead for more than 2 years. And the Taliban seems to confirm that on Twitter just this morning, actually, that he'd been dead since April 2013. This means they've been playing Weekend at Bernie's with Mullah Omar for more than 2 years. They issue statements in his name. They pretend he's alive. They pretend that people are actually answering to him. And al-Qaeda, in fact, has pretended he's been alive since all last year. And Mullah Omar has been crucial to al-Qaeda's response to the Islamic State and the rivalry between the two organizations.
Okay, so the rivalry. So then talk to us about the threat. Is it still the al-Qaeda-Taliban threat that really posed the greatest threat to our country because of their organization and resources? Or is it ISIS with these sporadic connections that are obviously producing wannabe, pardon the quotes, but wannabe terrorists like this guy in Buffalo?
I think they're both threats overall in different ways. And I think ISIS may be developing a capability to do something more professional abroad, too. I don't discount the idea that they couldn't do something more professional. But I would say that al-Qaeda and Taliban are still a threat as well. What's interesting here is, unfortunately, this whole dynamic is ISIS has been saying all along, Mullah Omar is dead, he's out of the game. You guys are genuflecting to a corpse, basically. And so they're the ones who are going to pick up support from this whole dynamic here with now finally Taliban admitting that Mullah Omar is dead.
Oh, that's really interesting. So it could be potentially a win for ISIS. I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because it comes to the resources we're putting towards the war on terror. And the nominee to be the Navy's top officer telling lawmakers today there will be no aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf for 2 months this fall. Senator John McCain asking the question that is on everyone's mind. Listen to this exchange.
Is that going to hinder our ability to carry out the needed operations in a region where obviously there's conflict taking place?
Without that carrier, there will be a decrement in our capability there, yes, sir.
All right, so this is coming as the U.S. is approving a possible missile sale to Saudi Arabia, also going to deliver some of those advanced F-16s to Egypt. So here we are putting arms and weapons to some of our quote-unquote partners in the Middle East. But then for the first time in many, many years, we won't have an aircraft carrier there while we are launching some attacks, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or otherwise, on ISIS. It's confusing. How do you see what exactly we're doing in the Middle East?
Well, there's no real comprehensive strategy. I mean, you mentioned the arms sales to Saudi Arabia. The great irony or unfortunate side effect of this deal that the administration and the West have signed with the Iranian regime on the nuclear issue is that we've relaxed now sanctions or arms embargo on the Iranian regime, which allows them to build their arms capacity, build their missile capacity back up slowly over the next several years. That's why Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states are reacting to this and trying to arm up their defensive capability as well, because they see that threat growing. So as we're supposedly mitigating the threat of the nuclear arms side side of Iran, right, what we're seeing is an increasing threat on the conventional military side, and this can't be a good thing for the region.
Just really quick, I know you really are watching what's happening online, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda or otherwise, and you always remind us we got to keep an eye on what's going on with Al-Qaeda, even though we talk so much about ISIS. So does our presence matter in the Middle East? Does the aircraft carrier, having it there, having it not there, how big of a deal is that to our enemies, and what does it say to them?
Well, I think at a certain level, some of this is show of force, or the ability to show that America is a real presence in the world. And at a very guttural level, I think our enemies probably understand that more than some of our political leaders do. That basically, whether the U.S. is there in force and show of force, that has a big impact on the mindset of the people around the globe and in the region. And unfortunately, I think right now, what the message is being spread throughout the Middle East is that the U.S. is effectively on Iran's side throughout the Middle East, which is very dangerous. And the jihadis, the Sunnis are all rallying now to that cause, saying, see, the U.S. is really on Iran's side. And this is really increasing the whole turmoil or the political cycles of violence that really drive jihadism and threat in the first place. So really, in the long run, I don't see this getting better.
Wow. Tom, thank you very much. Great to have you. We always cover a lot of ground. We appreciate it. John?